So welcome to a unusual video because it's on my channel. There's a video popping up. I know it's crazy. It's been so long. Hello viewers. This is the 18th of May 2020. We are in unprecedented times. We're still officially in lockdown, although a lot of the restrictions have been eased, and as a result of those restrictions being eased is why we're allowed out for day trips. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be taking Independence out for a day trip. We're then going to be popping down to Brooms to top up our fuel tanks, have a pump out, and that is basically the point of this video. But I'm doing this all on my mobile phone, and when I'm in selfie mode, so I can actually see what I'm doing and how I'm holding the phone and stuff, the microphone seems to go into mono, which is a bit of a shame. So I'm not sure how much of me you're going to be able to see, but that's not maybe a bad thing, because in these lockdown days, Sheila's had to do a bit of a buzz cut on my hair not that long ago, and it's growing back rather unevenly. So I thought I'd just talk you through some of the stuff that we have to do, simply because it's a bit different on this boat than your average Brooms boat. But also all the same, kind of. So the same checks that you will do if you've got your own private boat, checking your oil, checking your coolant levels, having a look around the engine, the belts, etc., stuff like this, I'm going to do. I'm going to try and take you around that as well. But there's some other things that I have to do on this boat as well. So it's time to cover up the uneven haircut and put the cap on and turn the camera around and show you what we're actually up to. So some of the noise that you heard in the background when I was just talking there was Sheila taking up some of the side canopies. There's Sheila. How are you doing?
Oh, I live my life, Daddy.
And so I'm going to take you just outside briefly. It's very strange to not have to duck for the canopy. I'm not used to that. There's so much that was going to happen this year. You know, I'm off the boat. I was going to talk to you about a few things, you know, from down there, but the winds got up a lot, so I've sort of using the boat as a bit of shelter, because we've got the old issue of noise on the microphones. I'm doing all of this on my mobile phone. It's been through the wars a bit. It's not the best sound quality, and it's not the best quality, you know, handheld and all that kind of malarkey. This year I had so many plans for the videos on the channel and the sort of new ideas and doing things. Last year in 2019 there was sort of an idea that we might be heading off on Independence, possibly down to the Channel Islands. That didn't come to fruition, so as this year dawned, you know, into the summer, it was more a case of, yeah, we're definitely going to do something, and we're going to go somewhere properly, you know, long trip. And then the coronavirus has scuppered everything. There's maintenance that's been delayed to Independence. There's maintenance that's been delayed on Broad Ambition, on Trixie, the whole thing. You know, it's really sort of scuppered all those plans basically, and you know, I bought new camera equipment and stuff to do things with, and just really I'd lost a lot of my sort of motivation to do videos. And the other thing as well, if I'm really honest with you, is because when I was doing all of the videos to the channel, coming up from London, hiring boats, doing all that good stuff, that was my freedom. That was my chance to explore and chance to just literally have that freedom, and that was wonderful. But now my you know, and now I'm living up here in Norfolk, and the freedom element I get the most enjoyment from is no longer just cruising on the rivers, because a lot of it is been done before, and you know what's going to be around the next corner, and it's like, you know, oh, let's go to such and such a place. Yep, okay. And then after we've been there, we go to such and such a place. And so what's replaced that really was exploring, you know, driving. And I did a little tiny bit of stuff when I decided to randomly drive all the way up to Aberdeen and stuff, but since then I've been all over the place. And the Mercedes SLK that I got, which originally was going to be literally just a cheap second car for sunny weekends with the top down, has turned into basically almost my daily driver. And I've owned that car for 1 year and 6 days, and I've done 18,225 miles in it. That's an awful lot of miles in effectively a two-seat roadster, which just gives you the idea. You know, I just get in it and go southwest, up north, you know, Wales, whatever. So also I found it very difficult when all of the travel restrictions came in, of suddenly just being still and not doing anything. So I hope that gives you an idea of what's been going on, basically. Some of the ideas that I've got, which I hope in the future can come to fruition. One of the other issues I've also got is I haven't got access to not only sort of high-speed broadband, especially with upload speeds. I'm relying on the mobile internet, if you like. So my router is connected to the internet, and then that enables me to have access, you know, just like at home, but it takes a SIM card basically. And so if you're uploading, you know, large high definition videos, I mean this video today is going to take hours to upload to YouTube, for example, and I've got to edit all on my phone rather than a computer and a proper editing software and everything else. So in some ways it's gone back to how it was before when it first started, you know, one camera, very little editing, pretty much raw. And in other ways, you know, I wanted to get into some other ideas and things. So anyway, as you can tell, the wind's really getting up. But we're committed to going out today. So wind or no wind, it's blowing us on the key, as you can see, which is I prefer. It doesn't matter what boat I'm on. If the wind's blowing you onto the key, that's where I want to be, because it gives you a lot more time and control. If the wind's blowing you off the key, everything suddenly becomes much more fraught, because you've got less time to react. As he says that, and the boat just wanders away from the key. So let's get into pre-departure checks in the engine room. Okay, so now we're in the engine room, and one of the things that we've got to check now on both engines is just generally just checking them over. You know, is there anything obvious that you've seen that's changed, or is there any sort of oil leaks or stuff running down them that suddenly alerts you to think, oh, hello, maybe this isn't going to be such a good idea. So it's going to be difficult to actually go through things, you know, holding the camera one-handed while I'm checking things. But basically, there's the oil dipstick down there for the engine oil. This one over here is an easy one to show you. That's the gearbox oil. It shares the same oil, which is good. So you don't have to keep two different types of oil. And things here, that's my hydraulic level in there, which is at 150 litres. And that tank there comes out of here. So make sure this is open. And that comes off a hydraulic pump here on the back of the starboard engine and goes through all of this. And that's what powers the 20 horsepower each bow and stern thrusters. So they're hydraulic, they're not electric on this boat. So I'm going to check the coolant levels as well. I'm going to check the belt tensions on the alternators and stuff like this. I'm then going to just take stuff down that's sort of, you know, been left up there. That's the smart thermostat system. So what that does basically is when the temperature in the engine room drops below a set point, it turns the tube heater on. There's another one there as well, to keep this area above freezing. I've got one of these open. I always leave one open, but there's 4 of these flaps to let the outside air in. Obviously the engine needs to breathe, so I'm going to open all the 4 of those. And then over on this wall here, where we've got all the switches for the engine control systems and the electric fly-by-wire throttle systems, I'm going to go and turn all of that on. I'm going to check the Raycor filters, the fuel filters, for any debris or water in those, as the boat's been sitting for some time without moving. And then we're going to start the engines up, and then we're just going to let the engines on a fast tick over. They won't heat up, but they will get coolant oil, the raw water pump, the impeller and stuff like this. So we're going to be basically saying, is everything okay? Is water being ejected from the back of the boat? Give them time to warm up a little bit. While we're letting those do, Sheila and I be outside, dealing with ropes and stuff like this, and basically preparing ourselves to know what each other's going to be doing. There's only going to be 2 of us today. It's a big boat, it's a heavy boat, so we need to know, that we're both singing off the same hymn sheet. So I'm going to get on with this, and then I'll catch up with you in a bit. So I've done my engine room checks, and all was good. Also forgot to say that to remember to turn on your seacocks. Mine are closed all the time unless I'm underway, so you don't want to start up engines without having them open. Why am I looking at the settee here? Well, the next part is I have to take this off, and then down here is, on Independence, we've got 3 fuel tanks. Some of them are controlled up here as to which are basically on, off, which ones you isolate. But down in the engine room is where you can actually determine which fuel tank you're actually taking fuel from, and to which fuel tank you're refeeding fuel. So obviously in a diesel engine, there is a fuel return line back to the tank. With these engines, quite a sizable amount goes back into the tanks. And on a long trip, what you also find is, because the fuel is being warmed by the engines, that slowly the temperature of the fuel in the tanks comes up. So it's quite interesting. We don't use the centre fuel tank for engine running. My centre fuel tank is for my hot air heating system. So that's about 450 litres of fuel in there for the hot air heating, which I've isolated, as you can see by the fact that the handle is up, and that will prevent the engines from using that. So my port engine uses the port tank, my starboard engine uses the starboard tank. There's a balance pipe between both tanks, which I also isolate when underway. The reason for this is the size of the fuel tank versus the size of the balance pipe means that if we start to list or move, which we won't really on the Broads, it's just something I do, fuel and also the difference between each engine's fuel use is just going to be a little bit different. Over a period of time, what can happen is one, basically like your port fuel tank, will start to have more fuel in it than your starboard fuel tank, and as a result of that, the boat will have a list induced. So by isolating the 2 tanks, and especially in pitching seas, the fuel will not balance between the 2 tanks, and you'll have a level trim. And then when you come to moor, I then reopen the balance pipe, and in still conditions, they will naturally self-balance themselves. When we go to get fuel, also I will obviously open it then, so as he's filling on one side, it will fill up the tank and hopefully go across the other side. Sometimes I have to also bring the hose over, the fuel hose that is, to top up the other tank, again because of the gravity and physics. In fact, when I bought Independence, I spent a fortune for that to be investigated, because the guy that did the fuel polishing said it's blocked or something's not right with it, and it's just the diameter of the balance pipe. So also in here are the emergency ventilation. So those flaps you saw in the engine room, which allow the engine to breathe and obviously allow cooling and fresh air to the engine room. If there was a fire in the engine room, it is isolated from the rest of the boat. And so what you can do on this boat is you've got an automatic fire extinguisher system in the engine room, which is activated by heat. So if a set point reaches, it will fire, and that's all well and good in an emergency, an unplanned emergency, but it smothers the engines with a chemical. Now, I believe that the chemical is similar to carbon dioxide. It could be carbon dioxide, but it effectively stops the fire having oxygen. So you take one of the sort of the sides of the triangle with fire, and the rest collapses. However, if there is the ability of fresh air to enter the engine room, it will not work as well, of course. So the ideal situation is that you're aware that there is a fire in the engine room. It might be a fire that is now beyond your control. So to stop, people being in risk, you would close these engine air intakes, and then you would manually operate the fire extinguisher from up here. Then you have a completely sealed, airtight environment, so no new oxygen can get into the engine room, and you will probably find a better situation. Probably a complete total loss for the boat, but what you're trying to do is stop that fire from spreading into the accommodation areas of the boat, and also the smoke. Any sort of seconds that you can get out. So by whacking off a seat cover, diving down and pulling a lever and pulling this emergency ring out and flipping the red switch, that's going to be beneficial. The other things that you're looking at down here is that's just one of the air conditioning units. There's two in the saloon on this boat, and this here is the hot air heating outlet, which is lagged, as you can see, and then this one here is the cold air return. So basically what's happening is that it's heating up internal air. It is not heating up external air, so it's more efficient. And this motley assortment of cables and rubbish down here is what's left of the old AV system that supplies the television and satellite input for the 3 televisions on the boat. And also you can remotely control them. I don't use this because, as you can see, it's not only analog, but it's also really pretty basic AV stuff. There's an awful lot of loss along the lines. It's taken a long time to trace a lot of these, so I've, put little post-it notes so I know what's what. This is an amplifying splitter box. This is for the remote, so you can point the remote at one telly in one cabin and it changes the channel. And then we've got SCART. I mean, this is just all old. I mean, back in 2002, this would have been, really good. Well, there was better, but it was mediocre. What we were watching in 2002 was DVDs. We didn't have high definition and Blu-ray and all that stuff. Well, maybe we did. I don't know. I didn't. And so, yes, although DVDs are standard definition, it's just free view and streaming of Netflix and Amazon Prime is preferred to trying to pipe stuff down analog cables. These two things here, in case you're wondering, that is the air conditioning system. So instead of having like refrigerant in a unit in each part of the boat, which could leak and need to be topped up, we have a 2 twin compressor chiller in the engine room, and effectively all it does is it makes glycol mixture very, very cold, pumps it up here, goes through the evaporator, cools the air as it's being blown in, and then the warmed glycol goes back down to the engine room to be chilled back down again. It just comes down to about 0.3 of a degree, so just above freezing, and goes in a loop, very similar to your sort of central heating system at home. It can also warm it up as well, but it takes an awful lot of energy. It takes 32 amps just to run and I haven't got 32 amps to play with unless I run the generator. I'm only on a 16 amp shore supply, so I trip that if I run my AC or try and heat the boat with this, hence why the Eberspascher warm air heating system. Right, I'm going to fiddle around with me levers, and the next point of call will be starting the engines. Okay, so now we're ready to start the engines. So I'm just going to just pause a moment and just make sure. Right, so I've done switched my main DC on for the engines. I've done my fuel, my engine room intakes, my seacocks. There's nothing that can fall down, vibrate off, or otherwise come into contact with any of the moving parts of the engines. I've isolated my fuel between the two tanks, so we're running off port for port and starboard for starboard. I've got all of my DC board mains on, so I'll just double check that. I'm just going to check I've also got my bow thrusters main on. I hadn't. Fire extinguisher. Let's see now. Fridge is on. Yep, okay then. Engine room lights I'll leave on as well. On the 12 volt side, I don't need my radar, autopilot, satellite TV. So yes, right, we're all good with that. So let's come up here. So I'm gonna, doesn't really matter which engine I go for first of all. So, oh, that's a bit bad, isn't it? You can see now. So we've now gone to the on position, and my controller here is now beeping. This is to tell me which station do I wish to take command of. Flybridge here or remote. The remote means I can operate the bow thrusters and both engines from a handheld device, and I tell the system which command center I want to use by pressing the button. Okay, now it's flashing at me because I've got my starboard engine on, and now I've got my starboard engine light here on. Now if I turned my port engine on, it's now asking me again, hey, there's an issue, you've got to take command. So now I've taken command of my port engine, and we're now in gear. This is important to know, and I don't want to be in gear, because if I'm in gear, when I move this forward, I'm physically going to head forward. So let's start again, and we'll go through this in one go. So I'm going to take the engines or the gearbox out of gear, so then I just have command of the throttle. While that's flashing, I know I'm good. So our starboard engine is now running. I'm not happy with that. Because I'm still in gear on gremlins in the system, guys. We now have both flashing, so I'm now out of gear. I had to reset on off on a couple of times, so we're now ready to start. Okay, so I'm just going to bring those revs up just to about 950. And now I'm going to go and check out the stern to ensure that I've got telltale waters coming out. So let's just hold on the phone a bit, because we don't want to do a Sheila and drop her iPhone in the river. So telltale coming out of there. video a second and just check down there for actual telltale water. Hold on please. So guys, we're back in the engine room. The water pump's probably going to spring into life in a moment, but I'm not happy with that discharge on my port engine. So I've isolated the seacock down here. I'm going to undo this. This is the big stainless steel sort of weed filter, and see what's going on in there. This engine never does discharge water quite at the same rate, but rather be safe than sorry. And then the next job would be checking the actual impeller on the engine. Bear with me. So this is the weed filter element. That might explain it. Port engine, much less clogged. So time to wash them out. This is where I get covered in mud. So, new clean strainers with your seacock isolated. You just give that a tap. You don't need to hammer these in. Some people really hammer them, goes like, oh my god, they've got to be so tight. No. So anyway, I can't really do it one-handed, but I'll take that off. I'll put this in, I tighten that back, and I repeat on the other side. Okay, so let's go for round 2 and start the engines. I've got Sheila around just with her head in to the engine room just to make sure that water doesn't start gushing out of the top of the strainer housings. Make sure I put them back on okay. It worked first time. Right. Sheila? Sheila? All okay? No? What's the matter?
There's no water coming out.
Well, thank God. If there was water, that's bad.
Okay.
Right. Ah, yes. That will be the gunk being released then. Right, that's one thing that I don't have to worry about then. There's a lot of silt in the system, obviously. Okay, so we're ready for departure, and temperatures are slowly coming up. Oil pressure's good. Battery voltage is all good as well. These are my gearbox pressures, which obviously will only indicate when the boat is in gear. So let's just pop up to the fly bridge. Grab that. So where the boat has basically just sat, it's just basically decided to break itself, because that's a boat thing. So all of this is sort of fallen back. Brilliant. This is packed up working as well. Mind you, it's old. It's old stuff on a boat like this. I mean, that's old as well. But this still works from the lower helm. It's just the weather's got to it. Despite having this all covered with canvas, and despite it being, you know, chrome plated and good for outdoors, it all slowly goes home, just with dampness, sadly. So I've got some water, which is handy to have. Got a VHF, just a portable one, because I have to plug and turn on all of the main VHF. So I'm on 16, just in case something happens, and yeah, why not? Bow thrusters are on and tested, and the stern thruster as well on this particular boat. So bow lady has just put our ensign up. We are ready for sailing orders. We're being held by 2 ropes currently. So this is the plan of action. Sheila's gonna let the ropes go. Honey?
Yes.
So because of the wind direction today, okay, we're gonna let the bow go first and then the stern. Then I'm gonna bring her out sideways, and then we'll do a turn here and around, and hopefully the wind will be
back, so I'd say
yes. And when you get on board the boat, if you can start to film as well with your phone, it would be helpful.
I'll try. I'm dropping my phone again.
No,
I want 2 iPhones down there.
Sheila sadly dropped her iPhone 11 Pro into the water, and what made it all the more frustrating is it was working for days afterwards, taunting her because it was still connected by Bluetooth to her watch, and then it suddenly died. And we've tried landing nets, we've tried magnet fishing, and we just can't get the damn thing. It was insured luckily, and there was no quibble with getting another one, but obviously rather galling to drop your phone in the river under a boat, and you know it's there and it's talking to you still. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to try and do my thing and concentrate. This is frankly the most nervous I get. There's quite a few people come down to check on their boats for the day and stuff. As I say, this is during the coronavirus pandemic, so we're going out basically to Brooms for a pump out and fuel. We are not really going out for just a jolly down the river, but after or before, I'm not quite sure, we will just go just to get the props turning, the engines going, you know, a bit of actual strain on them. We've waited till high tide's in about 25 minutes, because Independence does draw over 5 foot, so I need high tide. Let's get underway.
Mind your stern. Yeah, stern is clear. Oh, sorry.
Sorry about the wind, I'm sorry about not recording the turning manoeuvre, but I just needed all my concentration and hands here. It's very tight getting this boat round. So we're just coming down the fairway now to the River Yare, and you won't be able to really hear a damn word I'm saying. So we're just gently cruising along now on the River Yare in the direction of Reedham, but we're not going to be going too far. Just let the temperatures and oil pressures come up nicely, get some water under the hull. I'll be turning around and heading back towards Brooms, and we'll get stuff done there, and then we may go a little further down river or up river towards Norwich. As I say, the main reason for coming out today is just to go to Broome. But it's a gorgeous day, especially with the view up here. You can see right over the marshes. I think I'll give going up to Rockland Broad a pass though. I'd rather not act as the new dredger for the Broads Authority. Someone on a kayak up there enjoying their day. It certainly is lovely after so long of not being allowed out, and rightly so, to be able to come out and use our boats just for day trips. Now the wind's got back up again, so I'm going to be turning round shortly anyway. Other boats are enjoying their time as well. So as you can see, we're just cruising along. On my right hand side we've got the Brundle Riverside Estate, and ahead of us is Brooms, and independent sort of sister fellow trader. She's the Signature, this is the Sunliner, and I've got to deal with a tacking yacht, would you believe? So bear with me again. I better just oh, it's all right. So yes, she was out of the water and having work done at Brooms, anti-fouling, etc. And now another boat just comes around the corner, just because it would, wouldn't it? And she's almost identical, got the same engines as this boat, same length, but hasn't got the reinforced sort of sun deck to take a heavy rib, and also not the bonded tinted glass. And each one of these boats, the internal layout was always completely different, very bespoke to the original purchaser. And unfortunately there is a boat already at the fueling pontoon for Brooms, so we will have to hang around and come back in a little while. So we're just holding station here, waiting for this boat to leave the pontoon at Brooms. Obviously I'm not going to be able to film too much holding the camera and controlling the boat, but gives you an idea anyway. So there's a little bit of an issue with Brooms pump, maybe because it hasn't been used for so long. But we're the second boat to fill up, but it's making all sorts of noises and not dispensing that much. So the chap's on the phone and waiting and seeing what's going to happen. Maybe they haven't got it, you know, in their tank, but it's expensive though, £1.28 a litre still. Oh well, that was a little bit of a disappointment. There's an issue with Brooms diesel pump somewhere in the system, so it took absolutely for ages. I'm misreading the display. In fact, I think I'll talk to you guys when we're in the marina and we're not with all this wind. So full disclosure, this isn't actually the same day, and I'm using my phone. I'm using Sheila's phone. However, it is an absolutely glorious day again today, but I for some reason seem to have just stopped filming after we left Brooms, so I thought I better just do an ending to the video, and that is exactly what I'm doing right now. So basically what happened is we went to Broome to get fuel. Their pump packed up, so we couldn't get our tanks filled up fully. That's subsequently all been sorted out, so yes, you can go and get diesel at Brooms. They're charging £1.28 a litre as of the time of this video being recorded, which is expensive considering you can get, you know, petrol for 99.7, diesel for 104.7 at your forecourt where it's taxed, you know, 100% duty paid. So basically the reason for that is that Broome would have bought in thousands of litres prior to the fuel prices, you know, dropping. So they've paid full whack for that. So if they sell it at a lot less, say £1 a litre, you know, I can understand why it's 128 basically. Some people, you know, think that's unjustifiable, that, you know, 60-40 split, red diesel, why is it so expensive? There we go. I'll let you draw your own conclusions. This is handy, by the way. I got this from Roy's in Wroxham. It's one of those really unsafe lightweight dinghies that you don't want to use. But what it does come in handy for is going around the boat to scrub your waterline. And then you can deflate it and put it away afterwards. So that's all that's used for. And that bike there is not mine, that's Sheila's, but she used it once, and well, it used to be mine actually, to be fair. It's about 22 years old, and it was bought from Macro for £70 back in the day, and I got it up here for Sheila to use, and she used it once and she declared it to be too bloody big. But I thought I'd just give you there it is, an Astra Shooting Star. Not bad for 22 years old and 70 quid. Back in the days, this is a boating vlog, Robin, you're talking about bikes. If you're not talking about boats, it's cars, and now you moved on to bikes. Yeah, I know. But back in the days when the LED, they hadn't invented white LEDs. So red LEDs have been around for years. So this has got green LEDs because white LEDs for your headlights hadn't been invented, and these aren't bright by any stretch of the imagination. They're 3 mil LEDs in green because that's all that was there. But yeah, the tyres are original, not perished, hold air in them and everything else, and just basically over time keeping it oiled. There's some corrosion obviously, but otherwise not too bad. So yes, so that's basically the end of proceedings. We've had a big wash of the boat since we filmed. I took all of the canopy down and cleaned that, and then fab sealed it. And I've been in touch with the guy whose name escapes me, but Snug Tops at Bramerton. So he's going to tell me, because the actual material is in okay condition. There's a bunch of broken fastenings and the clear panels are in terrible condition. So if we can have the clear panels replaced and the fastenings and some of the zips done, I think it will be all right, rather than just replace the whole thing for something. Oh, this is something else I've got to deal with, is we've been invaded by loads of pigeons, and they just sit there, and if they just sat there that would be fine. I don't mind birds sitting on the boat, but they don't just sit there. They poo. Yes, they poo a lot. So that's something. Mind you, I say that, so do the geese. Anyway, it's a lovely day, and it's lovely to see people actually able to come down and go out for day trips and enjoy their boats. This boat going to be leaving there, I think, any minute. Another boat there getting ready to go underway. So yeah, it's just a lovely, serene, quiet place to be and enjoy yourself. One thing I've noticed though is maybe it's because of the change suddenly in weather, maybe it's because of much more boating traffic, maybe it's because of the lack of freshwater rainfall, but the river has gone really peaty coloured. So just interesting things that you notice and spot. So there we are, bit of a long end of a video. I better go and do what I've better cover the bike again, because I just forget, then I get told off by Sheila. So yeah, thanks for watching. I don't know, who knows, what's going on with the world at the moment, do we? But all of this is just simple as I can do it on a phone, editing on the phone, uploading it to YouTube, and just sharing with you literally something that you might find interesting. You might not find it interesting, that's fair enough. After all, you know, all we did was took a boat out, went down the river, turned around, got some diesel and came back again. It's hardly interesting, is it really? But I just thought I'd share it. So if you have been, thanks for watching. And oh, there's some spring rolls. Yum.
Yum.